On How-Tos and Reviews with Booze, we'll be showing you how to rotate the tires on your automobile so that you too can do it yourself.
This is a 98 Toyota 4Runner that we're going to be rotating the tires on today. And a lot of these concepts are going to be the same for any vehicle that you rotate your tires on. And I'm going to even give you a little bit of a breakdown of the different types of drive systems and the different types of ways that you can rotate your tires and which would be most appropriate for your car. So let's get into it. Alright, so this chart basically lays out the different types of drive systems that your car can have, as well as different ways that you should be rotating your tires. So starting off with these two on the left-hand side, essentially for all vehicles, you can either cross the front and the rear, or you can take the front and the rear and swap them directly on each side. So for the top, you would just be taking the front left tire and replacing it with the back right tire, and then the front right tire with the back left tire. In the bottom example, you would, on the same side of the vehicle, just be swapping your front and rear tire. The thing that you're going to need to be concerned about is whether or not your tires are directional. And you will see an arrow on the sidewall of your tire if they are. Basically, that just means that there is a certain direction that the tires need to be facing when they're installed. In that case, you're most likely going to need to swap your fronts and your rears directly, because if you cross-swap them, they're going to be facing the wrong direction. Now, if you have a front-wheel drive vehicle, you're going to want to take your front tires and bring them directly to the rear, and you're going to cross-swap the rear tires to the front. If you have a spare, what you can do is, again, cross-swap the rear tires, bring the front tires directly to the rear. With one of those tires, you swap out for your spare. It's usually best to keep it consistent and always take it from the passenger side and replace it directly on that side as well. It just makes it a whole lot easier as you're doing this in the future to remember exactly what you did last time and keep things consistent. And then on the far right, you can see what it would look like if you have a rear or four-wheel drive vehicle. And this also shows you how to do it without including your spare tire and with including your spare tire. To do this, you're going to need a socket set to take the wheel off and put it back on. You're going to need a floor jack, some jack stands, some wheel chocks, and perhaps a little bit of booze. And for today's how-to, I've chosen Espolón Tequila Blanco. Now these particular tires are actually snow tires, and they are directional. And you'll be able to tell whether or not they are if they have an arrow on the sidewall that's pointing in one direction or the other. So in this case, my rotation has to be pointing forward that way. So I need to make sure to install all of my tires with that facing the right direction. Now, because in this case I'm just going to be lifting up one side and moving the fronts to the rear and the rear to the fronts, what I'm going to want to do first is loosen up each one of these bolts just a little bit so that when I lift the car off the ground and I no longer have the traction of the wheel being on the floor, I'll still be able to take the bolts off all the way. If you don't do that, then you're not going to have enough torque on the bolt in order to break it free, and this wheel is essentially just going to spin in the air. Now you're just going to want to throw some wheel chocks behind the front and back tire on the other side of the vehicle, just to make sure that you don't have any accidents. Next, you're going to want to jack up the vehicle in the front and then place a jack stand under the frame so that you can remove the front tire, and then you're going to repeat for the back. So now we got the tires off the ground, we have the wheels chalked on the other side, we have the bolts broken free, we've got everything safe and secure, and we're ready to take the tires off. And again, in this case, we're just taking the fronts and moving them right back to the back, and taking the back tires and moving them right up to the front. Once you have the tire off, all you have to do is reinstall it and put the bolts back on and snug them down. Now before you lower the car back down, just get these as tight as you can for the time being. You're going to torque them to spec once we put the car back down on the ground. And it's always best to go in a cross configuration when you're tightening these up to make sure that the tire stays nice and flat when you're installing it and it doesn't get installed with the cant. And now with the tires rotated, we could do it on the other side. Now that the tires are rotated and reinstalled on the car, we can remove the jack stands and lower the car back down. Once the car is on the ground, all you have left to do is torque down each one of these bolts to the correct torque specification. For this car, it's 83 foot-pounds. I already have my torque wrench set up and ready to go. And again, you're going to want to go in a cross bolt pattern. So start off with one, go to the opposite one, go to another opposite one from that, and continue on from there. That way, when you're pressing the tire in, it goes on as straight as it possibly can. And once more for good measure. And you're done. That's it. It was pretty quick and easy and painless, hopefully. If you have any questions or comments, please post below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time on How-Tos and Reviews with Booze.